Hi, everybody. So in my work with schools and teachers over the past few weeks, our eyes have been on next year, as I'm sure all of yours has been as well. And we've been grappling with the reality or the potential reality that in a few weeks, we're going to be potentially in school with kids, socially distanced from them. And that at any moment that might change to remote learning, right? And I think a lot of us are in that scenario. Now, maybe you already are planning for a hybrid model. That might be true too. Regardless, it's going to take a lot of pivoting, right, next year to be able to take a unit that we were doing in class, but in class in a weird way, right? Where like I can't confer or pull small groups in the same way I used to. And then I'm kind of a dime, be able to do that work digitally. So I wanted to share a kind of framework that I've been working on with people and co-creating with people that might make that work feel more doable. I want to say right up front, I am not in this video saying that it's right that we should be in school and not remote. I'm just starting to think about what if we are, what does that look like? And especially what does that look like in the context of it could change at any minute and all of a sudden we have to change to distance learning, which are very different things, right? As we know. Okay, so here's what we're coming up with. First, we're going to keep it simple. Now, any of you who know my work know that that means we're going to really pare down what it is that we expect our units to focus on in terms of like academic focus, like academic progress, right? So I might think about a unit that used to have like 2 or 3 skills in it and say, you know what, in this unit, we're really going to focus in on this one foundational skill that I know my kids really need. And we're going to make sure that kids are able to practice that and get better at it. I think that is so important all the time, but I also think it is essential right now. We all know that the digital work goes slower. We can anticipate that when we're in the classroom and I can't go to a kid and sit next to them and talk to them, that the work is going to go slower. And so it can't be that our units are crowded with skills and standards. We have to make sure that we're really zooming in on one that we think our kids can be successful at and that will matter. The second thing with keeping it simple is that I think we have to have our eyes on what really matters in our classrooms always, but certainly next year, which is we've got to make sure that kids are reading and kids are writing, and that is the most important thing, that we keep working on that. In terms of literacy instruction, that's the most important thing. So you know, if I'm leaning into independent reading or I'm leaning into time reading without tons of writing about reading or instruction, never has there been a time where that is more okay than next year. So first thing is keep it simple. The second thing is that for each of the skills that we're going to teach, we want to create a progression and a list of strategies for each level of that skill. And I think this is going to be something that becomes really key. There are progressions available for people who are working with the units of study through the Reading and Writing Project. There are progressions that I have developed that I can share. There are progressions online. You can make your own, but we're going to have a clear, visual, concrete pathway for kids to follow for the skills that they are practicing. If I show a quick example of what that can look like, it might be this here. So here is a sample set of progressions. Now, this is just a draft that I wrote up with some teachers, so it's not meant to be a sacred text. But if we just take a character progression, for example, like here, you know, we can say that at the beginning of character work, kids might focus on emotions and name a trait. That as they get into more intermediate work, they're focusing on traits, or they're trying to name many, or try to find the words to describe a complex trait. And then as they get even further along or more advanced, they might try out thinking about motivation or explore contradiction or complexity. Okay, so if I have a unit that I'm saying, okay, the focus of this unit is going to be character inference or character analysis, I want to make sure that I pretty quickly, with my colleagues or that I take a source from somewhere else, I'm able to introduce to kids this sense of here's what that looks like at the beginning, the middle, and advanced levels of that skill work. And this is what we're going to try out in this unit. One of the reasons why we think that is so important is that a progression can live in my classroom with me far away from my students. I can teach into it, we can talk about it. Kids could even get up one at a time, come up and put a sticky note on a progression that's on the wall that says where they are, and put it, move it when they can move it, that kind of thing. There's a way for kids to get up and move around. A progression can also live remotely, right? Especially if I'm able to introduce it in person, that can then move to home learning scenarios where kids can use that progression still to set a goal. What's the next step? I'm going to keep trying it. So first, keep it simple. Pick one skill, maybe two, to focus on for units next year. Second is create a progression and some strategies for each of those levels. The third is to be ready to pivot, right? So regardless of what happens next year, chances are that we're going to go remote at some point. So what does this work look like of having a skill and a progression with strategies if we're in school, but I can't confer, versus remotely on the computer? I think it looks different, and I got to be ready. So in school, one thing we can imagine is that in-class time is spent with whole class instruction and independent practice. But the thing that's nice about a progression is even that independent practice, even if I can't go to a kid and like talk to them, even if I have to be at a computer sort of digitally responding to kids, or I don't know, really relying on whole class instruction, I still can use the progression as a big visual tool to make sure that kids are able to see themselves and where they are and what their next step is for their work that day, every day, etc. So we're going to use in-class time for whole class lessons and independent practice. Kids are going to do a ton of reading in class. In fact, we might even lean into kids doing more reading in class than they do at home for the time being. Just having the empathy of how kids are going to be in a different mindset next year. We're going to be in a different mindset. If kids are like me this year, it's going to be hard for them to work and do reading and concentrated stuff at home because our minds are all over the place right now. We're going to use the progression liberally. And then homework, one vision could be that homework when we're in school is focused on digital conferring with me and book club talks with classmates, like using Flipgrid, using Seesaw, etc., to have those kind of conversations that they can't have in school. Okay, so that's in school. The moment it goes remote, we use the progression to hold our work together, to glue it together. So kids are working remotely now. Essentially, their work hasn't changed, right? Their job in reading, say, is to read, to practice the skill work and other stuff using the progression to self-assess and set goals. That we spend our time, because one of the things that we all found was that our simple school day turned into you're never done working and there's no boundaries around work and life, etc. We can spend our time, our work time, recording mini lessons for kids to view based on their work. And then most of our digital time should probably be spent trying to pull small groups of kids for check-in and for teaching. And if we can do that in a way where most of our energy is spent on trying to connect with kids, build those relationships, coach in small groups, we might find that both the connection kids have to us remotely is stronger and the work feels more sustainable and effective. Okay, so clearly this does not answer all of the problems of everything in life. And please know that I do not claim that it does, but I do think that as we start to think about units next year, we want to think about some kind of framework that simplifies things and is very easily moved from an in-school environment that's different than we're used to, where we're not able to sit next to our kids as easily, into distance learning. I hope that this way helps you, or that it makes you think of a better way that works for you all. Take care, everybody, and good luck.